Welcome back to another edition of Force Friday, where we talk about Star Wars theories, characters, concepts, comparisons, analyzations, collectibles, and more. And today we're going to continue with our Wishlist series. We're moving into the sequel trilogy. I probably should do The Mandalorian first. However, with the second season right on our heels, I feel like it's best to let the second season run its course, come back to it after we finish the sequel trilogy. I feel like that's the fair move to do. And I also want to take a moment and say to anybody who is joining us for the first time, we say Black Series, but what we really mean is 1/12 scale. We'll accept SH Figuarts, of course, perhaps even Mafex if done properly, and even a Bandai model kit if it makes sense, and one of our listings today might actually make a little sense, but we'll get there when we get there. And before we get started, I also want to take a moment and say analyzations is a word. But thank you for your concern of my grammar. And I say that lovingly and respectfully to all and jokingly. But anyway, we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss what we want to see in the 1/12 scale. And I have been looking forward to moving into the sequel trilogy because in some regards, I feel like they've done a really good job of covering the big figures or characters. And in other regards, I feel like there's a lot left to do. So I feel like for the most part, they'll make pretty interesting lists. Real quick before we get started, because I deal with it every time I bring up the sequel trilogy. If you hate it and you need to let me know how much you hate it, why did you click on this video in the first place? Don't waste my time and yours. I assume both are valuable, but I know for sure that mine is. Now then, that we got those negative Nancys out of the room, let's get started with some fun. Coming in at number 10, Lor San Tekka. One of the first characters we see on screen, if not the first, and he might have the first line as well. Obviously a member of the old guard, obviously has ties back to the days of the rebellion, has ties to the original cast of characters, been around the block a few times. To me, she's royalty, etc., etc. Really gets the mission going for the entire movie, plays a pivotal part of the plot, and therefore deserves to have a crack at a character. Also, Jakku as a landscape is something that we're going to come back to continuously. If you know me, then you know that I like to flesh out landscapes with characters, especially background characters, B, C, and D-list characters, and he is a great choice to do so. Plus, the actor is a true gentleman, and he deserves a representation in 1/12 scale. I can't think of a better way to start off the list in the same fashion that we started off the film. Let's move on to number 9. And depending on which day you catch me, I might move her further up the list, but we're talking about KDLCO. That's how I think you say the name. I'm not good with name pronunciations. I'm better with the word analyzation, to be fair. But I trip all over names all the time. But this is the Resistance character played by Carrie Fisher's own daughter. It would be nice to kind of add on to the legacy of not only her bloodline within the films, but also the character legacy left by her portrayal of this Resistance fighter, who plays a bigger deal in Episode 8, in my opinion. And if I wasn't covering her here, I'd probably have her further up the list in Episode 8. But as of right now, here she sits. She doesn't do a whole lot here, but once again, filling out the background is something that I am really focusing on with The Force Awakens, because honestly, Hasbro's done a pretty good job, and Figuarts and even Mafex, to be fair, they've done a pretty good job of knocking out the core characters of this film. There's no like gaping hole, so to speak, of an obvious choice, with maybe bar one, but we'll get there. All right, moving on to number 8, PZ4CO. Now, this character did get a 3 3/4 representation, and to be fair, this would be a character that I'd be A-okay with Bandai model kits taking a crack at. It's just such an interesting and unique design for a droid. It seems like Star Wars, and yet seems like something we've never seen in Star Wars, partially because we haven't. But that character always stood out to me, and I think it would stand out on a shelf as well. Once again, filling out the background, once again, making a shelf pop with that unique blue, kind of screaming its way out from all the browns of a Resistance shelf, and variants thereof, I suppose, khaki and beige. My wife would correct me about such things. But I think he would be an awesome addition, and possibly a cheap one if we let Bandai model kits take a stab at it. Lucky number 7. Now, Hasbro, I'm sure, rolled the dice when they received what I'm sure was a number of images that they could choose from in regard to what characters they can make for their initial couple waves of Force Awakens figures. And when they stumbled across this design of the Guavian Death Gang, I'm sure they thought it would be a no-brainer to go ahead and do this character. And then you see the movie and the character's barely in it. But because we do have Guavian Death Gang members, I do feel like we need a Bala Teak. Tick? I think it's Teak. I'm not sure. This is a character that I normally wouldn't have as high as I do on the list. I normally wouldn't even sweat until maybe the second or third round of top 10s, but it's only because we have the Guavian Death Gang already that it just seems like a no-brainer. I'll also go ahead and add this. I find the Conja Club much more endearing. It became like a common phrase in my house, like, tell that to Conja Club. You know, like, hey, you left the door open. Yeah, tell that to Conja Club. Just became a thing. So they actually mean more to me, and I would probably appreciate Conja Club more, but they haven't created any Conja Club characters, so I don't feel like I'm missing out on something. Whereas I have this Guavian Death Gang guy just hanging out at Jabba's palace for no reason. It'd be nice to have a guy to kind of give him commands. At this point, I got to go ahead and say I'm taking Hasbro's deluxe and creature sort of mindset into account with some of these lists, because some of this stuff I feel like just lends itself to 2-packs or creature assemblies or whatever the case may be. And this is definitely one of them. And that's Captain Ithano and Quigold. Once again, don't know how to pronounce their names. And you can correct me all you want, but I probably won't remember. My memory is trash. But these are the characters that Finn hires to take him off-world in order to kind of get him out of Dodge. I always thought they had a pretty cool character design, the guy in red specifically. They seem like part of the fabric of Star Wars, and I would love to, much like Jakku, flesh out the characters of Maz's castle. I always thought it was a cool design. It kind of had like almost like a Renaissance fair vibe to it. Like, this is where you go to get a turkey leg and a funnel cake. But I kind of feel like these are two visually interesting and almost play a point plot-wise in the film characters that not only are iconic due to character design, but also because they received 3 3/4 figures and they were on a lot of the initial merchandising and marketing rollouts. And as a result, I think they just kind of captured our imagination a bit, and therefore it would be nice to see them. A lot of this stuff in this list is stuff that I don't know if they're going to do, because we don't get as many background characters as we end up getting troopers and Mandalorians at this point, and your kind of core cast of each trilogy. So it's kind of one of those fingers crossed sort of deals that we get some of these. And as a testament to what Hasbro has done with doing most of the main characters, it's also the curse of never really fleshing out some of these backgrounds with some of the characters that make Star Wars what Star Wars is, and that is the world building aspects. Now, number 4, I do think is kind of a pivotal character that was overlooked in regards to Black Series that probably should have got a figure, because he played a pretty big role and he was part of the plot devices that kind of gets the movie going, and that's Unkarp. And if they wanted to, they could kind of do him in a Build-A-Figure style, because then you could get 1/4 portion. Sorry, I had to. But seriously, this character is as much a villain in this story as any other character. He walked out certainly making an impression on the audience. People hated him. And much like Maz's castle, and much like we've already spoken about, Jakku is one of those planets that I do feel like needs some fleshing out. It does need those background characters to make it feel alive, to kind of make sense of some of the presentation. See, when you have these characters from Star Wars, and some look like they belong on a military base, and some look like they belong in the desert, and some look like they belong in an army, trying to tie them all together in a cohesive manner can be challenging, but creating some of the background characters can help tie in a shelf all together. Plus, this character plays a pretty pivotal role in the story, getting Rey kind of grounded with her initial, drama and adversities, challenges and conflict that she has to overcome. And he had speaking lines. That always counts, especially for a lower tier character. And I think that the 1/4 portion thing is one of those things from Star Wars that stuck, like unlimited power. People say 1/4 portion, like it's part of the fabric of the fandom. So I think it's an obvious choice, really. Now, 2 and 3 also probably become in a 2-pack. And I have to be honest, these are 100% selfish choices because they were character designs that I loved. And I loved from the first time I saw them, I think, and was it Vanity Fair? But this is Bazine and Grumgar, 2 characters that are in Maz's castle. Bazine actually starts getting the ball rolling in a lot of ways regarding the First Order attack on Maz's planet. So once again, a plot point character with a super cool character design, super unique, helps flesh out Maz's castle. And the 2 of them just look like there's a story there that I'm interested in. And I'm sure it takes place in some rollout sidebar book that I'm not going to read. But be that as it may, if I had it and I could put it on the shelf, then I could run away with the story in my own imagination, as it were. But I remember seeing their visuals in that magazine and thinking to myself, like, are they an item? Does she work for him? Are they dating? Are they crime partners? Are they heroes? Are they villains? I do think that a lot of these characters in Force Awakens specifically look a little Muppety in comparison to a lot of the other Star Wars stuff, but those 2 always seem cool, and they always seem like they probably had a pretty interesting story to tell. I always loved the kind of juxtaposition of the 2. Like, she obviously has a very pretty face and is a slender body, and then he's like this big monster, literally, and they're obviously together. So it's just one of those dynamics that works for me, in a very Star Wars way. And I think would work well as a deluxe set. It'd probably be an exclusive, but, dim the rules. And then my number one choice is a background character that I don't think gets enough credit, and it's Constable Zuvio. He was supposed to, they did him. I'm sorry. It's actually Leia in the end scene garb, where she's like this blue dress. If there's a Leia that hasn't been made, more likely than not, she's going to be my choice. And in this It's definitely my choice. I loved the blue dress on her. To me, she is always royalty. I thought it was great to end this kind of list on bookends of to me, she's royalty, and then end with the royalty. I thought it was a very elegant look for her at that stage in her life, and I actually preferred it over the kind of resistance trooper look that always seemed a little awkward. She seemed to just fit that dress motif a bit better, especially at that point in her life. We know that Princess Leia can be tough and wear a dress. She doesn't need to wear military garb. Not that I hate that look, but it's just a preference thing. If there's a Leia that hasn't been made, that Leia needs to get made, is my personal opinion, and she's number one on my list. Now, if I wasn't going to include the folks from Maz's Castle, the 2 sets of 2-packs, as one choice, or as 2 separate choices, if I included them as one choice, that would leave 2 characters to kind of back up, so I'll just throw in 2 for good measure. One would be Neenum, of course, because if you have a Neenum, you want a Neenum, but I would much prefer they focus their efforts on him in Return of the Jedi than him here. And if I had to choose one other, it would probably be, it's a tough choice, probably either Voberdan, the monkey sloth face man that was part of the Resistance, or Tito and the Lugga Beast is like another kind of deluxe or creature set. Once again, background characters, but that's really what The Force Awakens is in need of, are the background characters. As we go on, this changes a bit, but I'm really looking forward to continuing. I'm really looking forward to digging into lists regarding the sequel trilogy, because I think they've done a pretty good job, once again, of making the core cast of characters. And it's a collection that could feel relatively complete with just a few releases. Hope you guys are staying safe. Hope you guys are staying sane. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.